Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. Well, the Republicans in 4 more states are making their choice for their presidential candidate. The biggest prize, Michigan. And will the Donald add to his lead? Or will one of the other candidates have a surprisingly strong showing?
Well, Trump's been facing heated attacks from other Republicans in recent days, and those criticisms may be taking their toll. David Brody has the story.
Donald Trump may be leading the delegate race for president, but polls show his lead in the polls is starting to dwindle in some upcoming states, including the big prize, Michigan. Part of the reason is a sustained attack by his opponents, claiming he's simply not a conservative.
It is easy to talk about making America great again. Didn't even print that on a baseball cap. But the real question is, do you understand the principles and values that made America great in the first place?
There's no doubt Trump is on the defensive. He tried to push back against that narrative at a rally in Mississippi, a southern state that is among the 4 that vote today and where Trump is doing very well.
People would say Donald Trump is not a conservative. No. Call me whatever you want. I am a very conservative. I'm conservative on trade. I'm conservative in the military. I'm conservative with our vets. Our vets are going to be taken care of. I'm conservative with education. I mean, I'm a real conservative, but I'm also a smart and common sense conservative.
The mantle of smart and common sense conservative is one that John Kasich hopes voters embrace, especially in the key state of Michigan. As he indicated at last week's debate, he's looking forward to competing in Rust Belt states, since he's a Rust Belt governor from neighboring Ohio.
It's now March Madness, and we're heading up north to my turf, okay?
Kasich is positioning himself as the solutions-oriented candidate who is edgy, but not over the top like Trump.
Your job as a politician, and I've been in many offices now for a long time, your job is to solve problems and give people an opportunity to realize their purpose. That's what a politician's job is.
Kasich hopes Tuesday's Michigan primary will be a springboard to better things ahead. He's last in the delegate race, but with upcoming primaries in his home state of Ohio, plus Pennsylvania and Illinois, he thinks he can be the last one standing when the GOP convenes in Cleveland for their convention. But doing well in Michigan is a key part of the plan. There are polls that have suggested that he could do well here. There are also some polls that show him dead last, so it'll be interesting to see exactly what the folks here in Michigan have to say about John Kasich and his future. David Brody, CBN News in Detroit, Michigan.
You know, Trump was riding high. He was winning everything and was destined to win everything. Then they got in that awful bloodletting, that debate, and he, started talking about lying Ted and little Marco, and then they began to compare the size of their male members, and that just turned people off something terrible. I mean, it really was unpresidential and a slugfest, and people said, no way, this doesn't look inevitable to me. And some of the other attacks, they began to take effect, and Mitt Romney comes out against him, and people were reacting against Romney, but nevertheless, there's some people that said, well, maybe he has a point. So Trump isn't inevitable like he was. We'll see what happens in Michigan, but it's going to be a tough race. And I think John Kasich is a very, very attractive candidate. And he's going to, of course, he should win Ohio. I understand Marco Rubio is starting to come up a little bit in Florida, but it looked like he was gone, and we'll see what happens. But Florida is key, and those winner-take-all races coming up in another week will be big. But Michigan and Mississippi are big ones, and so we'll see what happens. But here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. If this race is deadlocked and no one candidate gets the magic number that it takes to get them over the top, and they are the rules. They've got to get those delegates. If they don't get them, after the first ballot, the delegates are free to vote for whoever they want to, and all of a sudden deals start getting made all across the spectrum. And there's an awful lot of arm twisting and bribes and who knows what all else goes on behind closed doors. But nevertheless, at that point of time, a compromise candidate like Kasich could emerge, and they say, well, okay, Cruz and Rubio and Trump have killed each other off. Now, who are we going to go for? And they say Kasich. But of course, the specter is Mitt Romney coming back in, but I feel that the people do not want him again. He ran a race, he had his chance, nice man, but he did run a good campaign, but I'm sure he's itching to get back in the deal. Well, Michigan could also be a key state in the Democratic presidential race. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington.
Thanks, Pat. Bernie Sanders is looking for a strong showing against Hillary Clinton. The senator from Vermont had hoped that his economic message would play well in the industrial Midwestern state, and Michigan could be his last chance to close the gap with a frontrunner, as polls show Clinton with a solid lead. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders crisscrossed the state Monday, battling for every last vote ahead of today's crucial primary. Both have focused on economic issues. Michigan could be a key point in the race in favor of Clinton, who can cement her lead over Sanders. A Monmouth University poll showed her with a 13-point advantage. She's now looking ahead to the general election and is focusing on her GOP rival Donald Trump. At a rally in Detroit, Clinton didn't mention Sanders. Instead, she talked about taking on the GOP.
The sooner I could become your nominee, the more I could begin to turn our attention to the Republicans.
Although they're in a race for the Democratic nomination now, Clinton says Sanders can help her win in November.
I would hope to be able to enlist Bernie in helping me reach out to his supporters, if I am so fortunate enough to be the nominee.
Despite a narrow path to the nomination, Sanders isn't giving up. He pledges to stay in the race until the party's convention in July.
If there is a large voter turnout, we will win.
But a Sanders loss today could make that even less likely, as Clinton appears to be on her way to securing the Democratic nomination. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Scotland Yard is warning that ISIS is planning, quote, enormous and spectacular attacks. The counterterrorism chief said its strategy is shifting. While Islamic State once had been using propaganda to radicalize people, the group is now trying to launch bigger attacks. Officials say ISIS is trying to bring Syrian-trained jihadis into northern Europe to launch those attacks. Well, U.S. airstrikes killed more than 150 Islamic militants after the bombing of a training camp of the radical Islamic group al-Shabaab in Somalia over the weekend. Multiple drones and manned aircraft launched missiles and bombs on the camp. U.S. military officials say those killed were likely preparing to launch an attack against African or U.S. personnel. Well, in health news, diets high in certain types of carbs may increase your risk of lung cancer. Researchers from the University of Texas found that people who ate a lot of carbs, like white bread, bagels, and so on, could raise their chances of lung cancer by nearly 50%. The London Daily Mail reports the theory is that these diets increase certain hormones in the body, and those in turn increase the risk of lung cancer. You can find out how these carbs can hurt your health, as well as some examples of healthier foods, by going to cbnnews.com. And Pat, the headline in that Daily Mail article asked whether carbs are the new cigarettes.
Well, I think they're onto something. You know, ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago, the Agriculture Department issued guidelines, and they had what they call a food pyramid. And you'd think, well, a distinguished federal agency is putting together a food pyramid. It must have some validity. Was it put together by scientists? No. By doctors? No. By researchers? No. Who put it together? Some lawyers in the Ag Department. Lawyers put together the food pyramid. And we were told to eat a whole bunch of cereal and a whole bunch of carbs, and you had to balance that off with a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, and so forth and so on. And then the next thing was the craze you had to have fat-free this and fat-free the other. Now they're coming back to the fact that, you know, it's sugar that's causing the problem, and the white flour and similar carbohydrates translate into sugar when they get into your body. So this is the root of our problem, and we have what's called inflammation, and people have inflammatory disease, and it is causing, well, they call it a metabolic syndrome, and we're having metabolic syndrome, which is bordering on diabetes. And the American people are fat as they can be. Why? They're doing that food pyramid. Now the experts are beginning to say, no, 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 white carbs are dangerous. White carbs are like heroin. They're like drugs. They make you want to eat too much, but they're not good for you. They're empty calories, etc. So anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, what you put inside of your stomach makes a huge difference to your health. And we're trying to tell you that on the 700 Club over and over and over again. If you listen to us, you will be healthy.
That's true.
Promise.
You know, one of the good things about the internet, I think, is that a lot of young people, but also adults who have health interest, are going online and reading for themselves the benefits of different things. Yes, finally, they are getting healthy.
Not listening to government lawyers who don't know what they're talking about.